The Babraham Institute undertakes world-leading research into understanding the biology of how our bodies work, including what changes as we age and during disease. In Scientist Stories, we invite you to meet some of the scientists behind the research and discover more about what they do and how they got to be here.
In this latest Scientist Stories video, I'm with Simon Andrews today from the Babraham Institute, and we're going to talk about Simon's career. Can you tell me a little bit about your area of research?
Sure, yeah. So I run the bioinformatics group at Babraham. So we're one of the core services. So we essentially help all of the research groups with the work that they're trying to do. And my group in particular is around giving them assistance with the computational side of their research. So that sort of encompasses a number of different things. So at some level, we're just giving them physical bits of infrastructure to do stuff on. So we have a big compute cluster that we run and maintain. We also develop bits of software for them to help them with their data analysis and visualization. We help them manage their data. They have lots of data these days that you just need to help keep track of and move around. We do that. And then we provide them with training. So to help them actually sort of understand the tools and the options for managing and analyzing their own data to help them get the best answers out of the experiments that they do.
Can you tell us a little bit about what a typical day looks like for you?
Yeah, it varies a lot depending on the type of work that's come in, but it generally encompasses all those sort of areas that I talked about before. So we develop a lot of software. So often a day will start by looking at the support requests that we've had come in for people using our software. So this would often be for people outside Babraham that make use of these packages. But yeah, lots of people around the world ask us questions, report bugs, hopefully not too many, and yeah, want some advice on how to do that. So that's often a starting point. We have a lot of sort of routine work that sort of comes in every day. So that will be sort of managing data analysis pipelines, checking up on servers, making sure that everything's still running the way it should be. And then beyond that, we might be doing training. We do probably sort of 60 or 70 days of training each per year. So it's quite a lot of days where we would be actually giving training courses. And then alongside that, we would have kind of ongoing work for current research projects. So that would be doing bits of analysis on existing projects or developing new bits of software to help with new data types that people are generating. And those sort of vary over time depending on what people are working on.
Can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not really a computational biologist. I have no computational training. I'm a biologist by training, as indeed are pretty much is everyone in my group. So I started out, I was a microbiologist by sort of original degree, and then went on to be a molecular biologist for my PhD. And I'd always done some stuff with computers, not in a work-related sense. So I'd had computers at home, I'd done bits of programming at a very relatively trivial level. And when I did my PhD, it was about the sort of time that computers were starting to appear in labs. So we had computer-driven bits of equipment. So I was the one that got given the boxes and told to make them work. And I found I quite liked it. So I ended up doing some computational work for my PhD, doing some protein modeling and some sort of engineering based around that. And then when I finished my PhD, I saw a job advertised for someone to be a computational biologist and thought I'd chance my arm and apply, and got the job. So sort of had to very quickly learn an awful lot about computers so that I could take up a post that I wasn't really qualified to do at the time. But then once you're in there, yeah, it was early days of computational biology, so everyone was kind of learning at that stage. So yeah, most people of my sort of age that have got into this often come in by fairly unconventional routes because there wasn't the sort of mainstream route to getting into this subject at that point.
I think that's a really interesting point about careers as well, is that there always is a sort of a side way in or a back door, and you don't have to necessarily follow a direct route.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, within the group that I've got now, I think, just thinking, there's only one person who's actually done any kind of bioinformatics degree or training in here. Others had an ecologist or somebody that was a cellular biologist, people who were doing wet lab work, but who picked up bits of computational sort of training along the way and found that they liked it and wanted to do more of that, but still make use of the biology that they picked up in their original training. And it's a really nice way to combine those two.
Fantastic. So you've mentioned that you have a PhD in molecular biology and that your first degree was in microbiology. What did you study?
School. So it was the usual sort of wide slew of GCSEs with, sort of all of the sciences you could take and some sort of mathematical stuff in there. At A levels, I'd done, it was really sciences and maths plus a language, which I really wanted to do German, but I didn't particularly like the German teacher. So I did French, which was a mistake because I then went to live in Austria, where German was much more useful. But no, it was sort of sciences and maths at A level, which I was much better at the sciences than I was at the maths, but really enjoyed all of that. So really not planning any of this to any great extent, just sort of keeping the things that I enjoyed doing, and therefore went on to do a biological subject on the back of that. And then, just sort of followed that same route.
Can you tell us a little bit about your other interests outside of science?
Well, outside science, I mean, the thing that I've always done alongside this, I mean, vaguely work related, I've always done computing. I mean, I do that both for work purposes, but now, I mean, most people who are computational, I know, have like weird side projects. So like I go and set up websites to go and track people's cycling activities. I'm in a cycling club outside work, so now I've got a little site where I can go and do that. So not related to work, but still computational. And then outside that, I'm also a musician, so I've been playing in orchestras and bands and big bands and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's funny how many scientists you meet in those. It seems to be quite a natural combination. There's an awful lot of scientists that turn up in various sort of musical societies. I think we need to get that side of our nature sort of out there somewhere. You can't do science all the time, so you've got to have something else in there.
Absolutely. And having lots of different interests is great. What advice would you give for people looking to get into science?
I guess the things that I would say is, firstly, don't worry too much about planning your future career. The career I ended up with didn't even exist as a career when I started out. So don't think that you have to have this sort of grand plan 10 years into the future. If you have, great, but many people don't, and most people end up in a job that they didn't really expect necessarily that we're going to end up in. I would definitely advocate for going with things that pique your interest. Don't necessarily just pick stuff based on what you think is going to be useful to you. Follow what you actually enjoy doing, both within your sort of formal training and picking A levels and degrees, but also make sure you do that outside. So the computational stuff that I did, I mean, I wasn't trained for that. There was no sort of courses for doing that. And I wasn't doing it with the expectation that it was going to be useful to me. But in the end, it was that sort of slightly unusual combination of, oh, you do computers and biology that got me to where I am. And often it's those sort of combinations that do it. So think about what you actually enjoy spending your time doing. And don't sweat it too much.
Thanks very much for your time today, Simon.